best there is, the best there was, or the best there ever will be. To be the man, you gotta beat the man. And that's the bottom line, 'cause Stone Cold said so.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pro Wrestling Central. Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Pro Wrestling Central. I am your host, Steph Paulin, and today in studio we have our first in-studio guest with us for Pro Wrestling Central. Her name is Jessika Black. She is a local pro wrestling star here in Montreal. She is also a high school teacher, which I just found out last week, actually, after knowing her for about 6-7 weeks. I met her at the wrestling school that I attend, Torture Chamber Pro Wrestling Dojo here in Montreal, the mecca in pro wrestling gyms in Quebec. I think you would agree with me, Jessika.
Yes, I would.
Yeah.
100%.
And so when I started this podcast a few weeks ago, and I was talking around, and I said, Jessika, you want to come on the podcast? And she gladly agreed to come on. So welcome to Pro Wrestling Central.
Thank you very much. It's an honor for me to be here.
Perfect. So like I told her, it's nothing professional. You can swear all you want. I don't care. I
am a teacher.
You are. I'm sorry. I apologize. So I apologize in advance if I let out a few swear words. It is... There's no censorship here in studio.
Let's have some fun.
So I met you, I'd say I've been at Torture Chamber for about 8 weeks now, more or less. It was the beginning of April. It was WrestleMania weekend, I believe. I did my tryouts, and I believe you were there. I met you, and I instantly fell in love with the school, with the chemistry, with Drew. I just want to mention the school is ran by... a wrestling superstar. Let's call him a superstar. Drew Onyx, been wrestling all around the world for the past 15 years. And I met Jessika, and she was one of the few ladies from the Torture Chamber. And it was a great experience, and then I started going there, and been there ever since, like I said, for 8 weeks. You've been there for how long at Torture Chamber?
I started in August 2013, so I'm coming up to 2 years very soon.
August 2013.
Yeah.
All right, so about 2 years.
Yeah.
And how did you find out? Were you a pro wrestling fan all your life?
I was a pro wrestling fan all my life. I have to say there was ins and outs. I think like a lot of people, sometimes you follow it more, sometimes you maybe lose a little bit of interest. I think at the end of the Attitude Era, I kind of...
Like around 2000, 2001, that era?
Yes. Well, I'd even say at least until 2003 was when I slowly like lost interest for a couple of years. Then slowly got back into it. Was watching TNA for a bit. Then back to WWE. And it was just always something that I would always sit there and be like, I could do this. I think I could do this.
Yeah. I was about the same. I became a wrestling fan. My first wrestling memory was when I was 7 and going on 8 years old, and it was we didn't have wrestling much on TV back then, especially where I was from. So what I used to do is every weekend after Friday after school, my mom would bring me to the local video store, and we didn't, at my grandma's house, we didn't have a VCR. So I used to rent the VCR, and I would rent the VCR with a few movies, and I would never rent movies. I would always rent wrestling tapes. And the first memory I have is obviously for a lot of wrestling fans, it's Steamboat versus Savage, WrestleMania 3, and it's the first wrestling match that I really remember going, holy shit, this is something, this is amazing. And I grew up from then on a massive wrestling star. I used to play at home in my bed and just wrestle with everything I could put my hands on.
Yeah, that's an awesome match. You could rewatch that match a million times and never gets old.
It's on the network. I have the network here at home, and when I first got the network a few months ago, it was for some reason it was around WrestleMania, so they were showing another WrestleMania match. They replayed that match 100 times, and I watched it 100 times. And like you, I grew up as a teenager. Well, I'm not sure about you, but for me, in the Attitude Era, 96, 97, 98, 99, I was a teenager. I was 18, 19, and I love that era. I'm like you see on the wall. I have a Stone Cold picture there because he's my all-time favorite wrestler. But like you, after the Attitude Era, I went out to college. I started living on my own and living my own life, and I kind of moved away from wrestling. And it was only until I'd say about 3 or 4 years ago where I started investing more and more time into it. We were at home, and on Monday nights there was nothing else to watch. I would tune into Raw for about an hour, and then the next week it would be like for an hour and a half. Oh, look, who's this? Who's champ now? Who's in wrestling? And I met all these new characters. I also noticed that wrestling wasn't what it used to be.
It's not the same
anymore.
at all.
So I had to like reprogram my mind to what to expect. Now, the moment I stepped into Torture Chamber and I started doing the classes, and I met Drew and I met you guys and I met everybody, one thing was clear to me, is this was a pro wrestling gym. It wasn't a sports entertainment gym. I wasn't there to learn. Obviously, we do learn about the entertainment factor of it. We do. But the fact of the matter is, it is a pro wrestling. We learn a lot of technical stuff, chain wrestling, and we do learn a lot about the psychology also about wrestling, which is like most people is a facet that not everybody understands.
Not at all.
When you, like you said earlier, you said I watched and I said I could do that. When and why did you all of a sudden go, you know what, I'm gonna really pursue this?
I think it was sort of a midlife crisis for me.
Really?
Because I'm not the youngest at the chamber, let's just say. I don't think I'm the oldest now, because
I might surprise you.
Exactly.
I think I'm the oldest.
Yeah, you just dropped a few hints, so I think you might be the older one than me. But yeah, I think it was just kind of like I was just getting through my life, and I was getting really comfortable with where I was in my life, and I was like, I needed a new challenge. I needed something new, and I'm going to say this, I have my husband 100% to thank for. He pushed me. He's like, yes, you can do this. He helped me get the information for Torture Chamber. I remember being on the phone with him. He was at work and I was at home, and he's like, okay, I'm calling you back in an hour, and you're going to have called Drew. You're going to have made your first appointment for your child. And I was like, okay. And I was all scared. I was like, I have to call this guy. I don't know. And I did it. And yeah. And so happy. So happy I've done it. It's been like such a great thing in my life so far. So
did you find out, how did you find the Torture Chamber? You said your husband, obviously your husband is a huge wrestling fan. Also, yeah. From what we kind of have a connection. For people that don't know, my girlfriend works at the same area, at the same company that Jessica's husband works at, and through my girlfriend I know, she told me he was a huge wrestling fan. It was surprising to me when I started looking into. I was curious. One day I went on Google and I Googled Pro Wrestling School Montreal. And
did you find anything?
Torture Chamber came up.
It did, because it didn't when I looked up.
But he doesn't have a website, so the thing I had a hard time finding it. But then I went on Facebook. Yeah. I always search on Facebook, and all of a sudden I found pro wrestling. Then I'm like, well, what's the local promotions? And I found NCW, which you worked at NCW. Yep. And I said, you know what? I'm going to check out one of their shows. Okay. So first thing I did is I said, I want to get back into the indie scene. Because back in the day when I was like 19, 20, I lived in Moncton, New Brunswick. And I got into the indie scene one summer. And it was the greatest thing. It was so different than what I saw on TV. And I used to go to the same gym where all the wrestlers go. And I used to talk to them. And they would always say, you should. Back then I was a bit... I was into lifting weights a lot, so I was bigger, and they were like, "Oh, you should come and try out and stuff like that." And the indie scene to me was so different because the interaction of the fans, number one, it's smaller fan base. You're going there, sometimes there's 50, 60 people instead of 15,000, 20,000 people. And the interaction was so different. And I was like, oh my God, you're kind of shell-shocked at first. So when I went to NCW, I brought my son. I said, my son was getting into pro wrestling late last year. And I said, I'm going to take him to an indie, so see how he responds. If we get there, right off the bat, I get front row seats. I'm like, oh my God, okay. There's about 100 people in the crowd, which is not bad. And it was a good show. Put on a good show. My son loves it. Hand high fives all these wrestlers that go in and out of the ring. And like you, I was at the promotion, and like you, when I watched it as a kid, I always fantasized about one day I want to be a pro wrestler. And then I grew up, and I had all of a sudden life got in the way, work, college, work, bills, car payments, shit like that. And then I became very programmed to like, well, this is life. I have to do this and then this and this. It wasn't until I was in my mid-20s where I kind of like crushed all those things and went, fuck this, I have to reboot my life. And I packed my bags and moved halfway across the country, with no job, no future.
Good for you.
And chasing my dreams because I knew that's what I had to do. And when I was there at the indie show and I looked at these guys, number one, I said, I come from 10 years of martial arts, and I've been doing martial arts for the past 10 years. I've competed in many different competition, different disciplines. Mm-hmm. And the same thing, first thing came to mind. I saw some guys that were good, and I saw some guys that were okay. And then I'm like, I could do it. With the proper training, I could do this.
Yeah.
So I went back home, and then I Googled, I finally found, and I was astonished at how easy it was to just join a school. That's what my surprise was, because I thought it was always like you have to know someone to put you in and bring you in, and you come in, train once in a while when I have time. But no, the torture chamber is you go in, you show up, you pay your dues, and you show up for class. And that's the only thing Drew expects from you is you show up to a class. You can show up as much as you want, or as much as he invites you. Mm-hmm. And if you put in the time, he's going to give it back to you. And I was like, right away, I come from, like I said, a martial art background where you go to the class and you do your thing, and it's a discipline and it's a respect thing. Yeah. And I got the same thing, and I was like, oh my God, I love this. So tell me your first experience when you walked into the torture chamber. Was it at the same location?
It wasn't at the same location. They were in transition. So we were at a JKS in the West Island.
Martial arts.
Yeah, martial arts. So I went in for my tryout with me and another guy. And I remember I was really nervous because I'm not the most fit girl. I mean, like, yeah, I've been to the gym, but I'm not super athletic and whatever. But I had asked, I was like, what's going to be expected of me? So he had told me a couple things, and for 2 weeks straight, I was like just practicing those things, like whatever, like see if I could jump rope enough, like long enough, if I can, like just as many push-ups I can do, etc., etc. So went in, didn't know what to expect, but I was so happy and so like surprised about how welcoming they were, and especially a girl in a guy's world. And like, you never know, like, okay, it's gonna be locker room, but like how bad is the locker room gonna be? How, I mean, I'm like I said, I'm mature enough, I'm old enough, I've experienced a lot of things, so it's not like I was scared. I wasn't scared of being offended. I was just scared of how I was going to fit in for the first couple of times.
Were you expecting like super alpha males? Is that what you were expecting?
I think I was. I think that's what I was. I was expecting like super macho guys, like, like, oh, who's this girl? What's this girl doing here? And it was the complete opposite. Everyone was super nice, super respectful. And what I loved about it is I'm not necessarily the fastest learner, and it wasn't an issue. Like, it was every time I did something, didn't do it right, it was, all right, let's do it. Like, it was the encouragement factor of like, we're going to do it, we're going to get it there. Because like you said, if you put in the time, he puts the time back into you. So if you show that dedication and you show your will, they're there for you. And that was like, Drew's there for you. His other students were there for me. And I was like, I think about it, and I'm like, if I would have joined another school, I wonder if it would have been the same. I wonder if I would have been, the same wrestler that I am now, or if, I don't think I would have given up, but it might not have been as pleasant. And I don't think I may have been less motivated too, because it would have been less pleasant to go there.
Totally understand. When you showed up for your first time, was there any other girls there?
No. Well, there were girls training, but at the time, because it was in the transition, there was a little bit of in and out, like for who was going to train. So I only met my first girl, maybe, which was Stacy. I only met Stacy maybe 2 months into my training. She had already been there, but she wasn't like.
So she started before you.
She started before me. Yeah.
Okay. Because when I showed up, I think there's only you, Stacy, and yourself when I started. Yeah. You were the only two girls at the torture chamber. Now we have two more girls that have been coming. There's the other Jessica and Eve. And I remember Okay, so let's go back to, so you walk into the gym and you're nervous.
Yeah.
You're nervous. But you've been practicing.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's good. I mentally tried to prepare myself.
It's funny because I'll let you finish, but I've been, like I said, the past 10 years in martial arts gyms and somewhat in good shape. I've competed many times, and I took a break towards the end of last year. I'd suffered my third concussion within the span of 3 years. Okay. And I was contemplating, am I done with this? 34 years old, going on 34 back then. And I was like, if I'm not going to make money off of this, as much as I'm passionate about it, I can keep going and training, but the getting punched and kicked in the head, which I love, unfortunately, it's like this adrenaline rush. And it was like, okay, what do I do? So I took some time off. And so when I decided to go to the torture chamber and make that transition, I remember I emailed Drew, and he gave back to me with some information. And for like a month and 2 months, I didn't get back to him. I'm like, this is a big dream. This is not a big dream, but it's like, this is pro wrestling, and what am I thinking? I have 2 kids. This is hard. This is probably a lot of dedication, a lot of hard work, a lot of time. Although I did expect my girlfriend to be 100% supportive, like she's been through my amateur career in MMA, many hours in the gym, not at home. And let's face it, with 2 kids, it's not easy.
No.
I said, I'll put it on the back burner. And then I was on Facebook one day and I saw he was having a tryout. And I said, it was like $50, come try out, see if you have what it takes to be a wrestler. And I'm like, oh, well, at least let me go do the tryout. Yeah, maybe I'm like, maybe this is the only experience I'll ever have, but I want to see the atmosphere, the feeling. And that was about 3 to 4 weeks before the tryout. So I ran to the gym. I got myself a 1 month subscription. I did nothing but cardio and strength and conditioning for like 3.5 weeks.
Yeah.
Every day, sometimes twice a day. Because I didn't want to show up there where I'm like 5 minutes in, skipping ropes, and I'm gassed out.
You don't want to be that guy. You never want to be that guy.
That guy looks like he knows what he's doing, but he's like in the corner there, like keeled and keeled over and can't breathe. So I went through the thing, and then I showed up. So you did the same thing, but the day you showed up, you were obviously still nervous. I know I was when I showed up. I was like, I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I was like, is it going to be like, I'm going to be there for 3 or 4 hours and it's going to be nothing for me and I'm going to get bored? I'm like, just show me more, because I'm like that. I'm like, oh, this is your beginner stuff. What's your middle to advanced stuff? I just have it in me to like, ugh. And how long was your first experience, the first tryout? Was it?
Because of the thing, we were in the transitions of the places. I did an hour. Basically, it was me and another guy trying out with Drew, and Kevin was there. And it was just an hour basically of rolls, the cardio, and a little bit of chain. And then after the regular practice started, which I watched most of and participated with a little bit of the little chain that I had just learned. So the whole experience altogether was maybe 3 hours, 3.5 hours.
Okay.
And I remember even just with that, I was so sore. I was so sore. I remember that night I could barely walk, how sore I was.
Did you take bumps the first time you were there?
No, because there was no ring.
Okay.
So I actually didn't take bumps maybe the first month because we had no ring at that time, which is something that like I strongly suggest. Bumps are, well, everyone knows bumps are super important. Make sure you get your bumps in as much as you can at the beginning.
I took about 100 bumps the first day I was there.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. I kind of got like, I slipped through the cracks.
I was like, I didn't expect to take bumps. I didn't even expect to step into the ring. I get in there, we do the rolls, we do the warm up, and we do the rolls. And I get through the rolls pretty easy, having done grappling and stuff, wrestling. I've rolled on mats and stuff. So some were a bit hard, some came easy to me. And all of a sudden he's like, all right, let's get in the ring, take some bumps. I'm like, what do you mean bumps? Like, let's take some flat back bumps. And I was like, that's awesome. Shit. I did about 100 altogether. And
how's your head after?
From my head and my back, oh my God. Yeah, for like 3-4 days after, let's just say I had a hard time wiping my ass. And
that's amazing.
And it was just not just that, but it was the bruises on my arm. I'd never bruised like that before. And I was like, what the my forearms here were black and blue from taking so many of the bumps. Because I 100% didn't know if I was like, you don't do them well all the time. No. Now I don't get anything. My body's used to it. But I think the shock of falling and getting back up. Oh, shoot. Sorry. My phone is connected to my computer. Did you hear that in your headphones?
I did.
Sorry.
That's
Sorry, guys. I remember my body was in shock for like 3 days. Like I was sore everywhere, but it was like headaches, but like not like a headache. Like, oh, it was just like I'd been through massive headaches with concussion. It wasn't the same thing. It was from the neck soreness and not being able to turn. And but yeah, I took some bumps the first day. And so you go through, we'll go back to you. We go through the thing. You were hooked from the first time you stepped in the ring?
I was. And I remember I was so disappointed because I was going on vacation for 2 weeks after. And so I was like, I was like telling you, I was like, okay, so I'm in 100%, but I'm not going to be here for the next 2 weeks. And I was like, I know that doesn't look good. But and then as soon as I came back, it was nonstop. I haven't taken a break since.
And so you go through the steps. What were your expectations when you first started? When you said you went in, you got the bug, you're like, fuck this, I'm doing this. You pay your dues, you show up to class 3, 4, 5 times a week. What were your expectations? What were your goals to begin with?
My first goal was to have a match. That's it. I was just like, I just want to have a match to say that I could have had a match, that I've done this, that I've accomplished this, that, and I worked like damn hard. You know how it is, like practice, 3 to 5 times a week, all the time that you're investing. And it's just like, I worked damn hard. I'm going to get this match and I'm going to have accomplished this thing. And I remember when she was like, all right, you're going to have your match. And I'm like, no, I'm not ready. And he got so upset at me. He's like, I tell you when you're ready. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah, that's one thing I learned when I was there is that he's like, you might think you're ready, but I'll tell you when you're ready. And when I think you're ready, you're ready.
Yeah.
So although you might think you're ready or not, if he thinks you're ready, he's so good at what he does. Like I gave myself, when I got there, I'm like, I'm yours.
Yeah.
Coach me, do whatever you want. I'm not gonna question you, but like I was like, I'm yours, and mold me into the professional wrestler that you want me to be or you expect me to be. How long did it take you before you got your first match?
So my first match was in October at Straight Outta Chamber, so October 2014. So it took me a little bit over a year.
Okay.
A little bit over a year, and which is not bad. I'm happy enough with my progression.
Well, when I started, he said within 15, he said anywhere from 12 to 18 months before you get in the ring. And then I was like, I didn't have zero expectations because I didn't know how it worked. And I'm like, okay, that sounds fair. It looks fair. And then I started meeting people that had done it in 6, 8, 10 months. And I'm like, oh shit, if that guy doesn't, I'm like that. If that guy does it in 6 months, I'm doing 6 months. I don't care what I need to do, what I need to push myself. I'm very competitive. And it's not a bad thing towards that person that did it in 6 months. No. It's just that I see it as, well, if he can do it, unless he's superhuman, it's not everybody that can do it. And I think it's not recommended for everybody, because I think if you're thrown in too fast, you number one, you start making mistakes that you won't be able to correct, because you're like, because I see you and I see you in the gym every week, but I also see that you work a lot.
I do. I do. I have a big career.
It's every weekend, right? Pretty much.
Yeah.
Sometimes twice a weekend.
I've done twice a weekend, but so far I've done twice a weekend twice, I think, but it's been every week since February.
Okay, so August 2013 you start.
Yeah.
You have your first match in October 2014.
Took a couple months to get my name out there.
Yeah.
As soon as my name was out there, it's been nonstop every weekend.
Okay, so you did your first match at a Torture Chamber event, which was Straight Outta Chamber, which he holds. Drew holds every year, basically showcasing the rookies and the new people in. You had your first match with who?
With Stacy Thibault.
Oh, okay.
My longtime Torture Chamber rivalry.
Yes. So obviously, both from the Torture Chamber, you had time to work on your match. Did it make it easier, I guess?
It did, in the sense for we had time to really work out, the psychology of it. Yeah. To tell that story, we had time to really think it through. And obviously we had Geronix as our amazing coach, basically building this for us and helping us build this. So that was really good. But then it added that extra stress of like, everything, it it's weird. It's different, the difference between like improvising something and following a script.
Yes.
So it was like it was good because we had that security of like, we know that if we do this, it'll be good. But then, are we going to remember this? Are we going to, like, with everything, like all the nerves and everything, is this going to, like, what if there's a mess up? And then it's like, well, we scripted this and then, or not scripted this, but you know what I mean? We worked through this.
Yeah.
How are we going to, like, if something goes wrong, you're afraid to deviate after.
I find that once you're given a script of some sort where you go, okay, move, then your fear doesn't become of, am I be able to do it? It becomes am I going to be able to remember every single thing? And I think it becomes like muscle memory. When I started boxing, you learn the basics. But after a while, you're in the ring, you've been doing it for a long time, and all of a sudden you throw a punch that your brain, it barely registers.
Yeah.
Like, I threw that totally out of like just getting used to, I know this is what my body knew, this is what I was supposed to throw here, and I saw it, my eyes saw it, my brain registered it, and then boom, it was quick, fast, done and thing. Pro wrestling is a bit different because number one, you got to slow it down, and there's so much, there's selling, there's people
you got to tell that story.
Understand. Yeah,
you have to tell the story. That's the.
And sometimes if you wait too long, you're like, okay, what's my next spot here, and what do I do next? I'm good at improvising, but I'm also show me something, I'll do it, and if I do it right, I should be able to remember it.
Yeah,
unless
that makes sense.
I get hit in the head and I totally forget about it,
which happens.
I'm sure it does
often in wrestling.
I've seen it happen at shows and such. So you had your first match, and in front of how many people?
Oh, there was a lot of people. I think I wouldn't be able to say the right number, but easily 350, over 350, I believe.
All right,
375, maybe around that. And that was
compared to the crowds that you work at right now. That's pretty big crowd.
Yes, it was. And I had a lot of friends and family come out to support me, which was so heartwarming. And yeah, no, it was a really good crowd, and it went really well.
Do you like performing in front of your friends and family, or is it added pressure to like, ugh?
There was an added pressure because a lot of my friends and family were shocked about it. Like, he said, I joined pro wrestling. Like, why are you doing that? What's wrong with you? Like, I'm not going to say how old I am, but whatever. You're older. Why are you doing this? And it's just kind of like, some of them, like, I take the time to explain. Some of them, I just be like, whatever. Just, I'm doing it because I want to. And I had some friends that I was like, I don't know if they're going to be surprised. They're not. I don't know that they didn't think that I was going to do well, but they didn't see me in that light. So I wanted to prove to them.
They saw you as a high school teacher.
Yeah, they see me as a high school teacher, the girl that does whatever on the weekend, and so I really did want to prove to them that I was able to do it, and like in a positive way, in the sense that not that they were doubting me, but again, like at a certain age, a lot of us, we have dreams and we don't do it because we're like, oh, we're too old or we're too comfortable or whatever. So it's like if they can see me do it, then maybe it'll help them. Like it was really positive, like pressure from them in a sense. So that I was putting on myself, and but then the reaction that they were there, and to see how supportive they were, the pop that they gave me, it was amazing. It was such like I came out and. Like, yeah, there was a lot of nerves, but seeing their faces there with like big smiles and super happy to see me, and whatever I did, it was like, yeah, and I'm like, okay, cool, this is going well. So that really helped.
I've been to shows where you wrestle, and the pop you get is most of the time bigger than most of the guys that are in the card.
Thank you.
I've been to many few NCW shows, and for the most part, I think you've had matches on all the cards I've been there. I saw you at the Ultimate 8 where I didn't work as security and stuff. I didn't work the match, but I was there, and you probably got the biggest pop of the whole night. You had, for the most part, a lot of people in the crowd, I believe, friends, family, which that's when I always thought of myself as like, listen, to me, telling people what I do, I don't have a problem with that. I started doing pro wrestling, and some were like, oh my God, that's awesome. Guys were like, oh my God, that's awesome. And now my family, for the most part, are used to me all of a sudden going, he's just crazy, he's gonna do what the fuck he wants. I remember when I had my first MMA fight, and I posted just either a video or pictures, and some family members like you do this?
Yeah,
like,
it's messed up.
You get punched in the face like that? And I'd post pictures sometimes, either a broken nose or a black eye, and they're like, they get used to my craziness. I go back home and visit my family in the summer, and they're all like, hey, so tell me, are you still fighting? Are you still doing this? Now that I've ventured into pro wrestling, not everybody knows about it, but as it's going to grow, as I get better, as I get more exposure, it's going to be the same thing. And then come the expectations, like, oh, are you just doing this for fun? Or are you expecting to do this? And I always relate it back to martial arts, because in martial arts, MMA especially, the training you put in for 90% of the time, not getting through, not making it pro, or making it pro and never going as far as your backyard. Staying local, it's so hard. MMA has become so big and so strong in the last 5-10 years that everybody's doing it, and the fighters are just too good. I was just getting too old, and I couldn't keep up. As much as I keep myself in shape, I eat healthy, I do all that stuff, I think it was more of a half mental and physical thing. It takes
a toll, I can imagine.
Yeah, and like I said, if I was going to make money out of this, I was going to have to transition to something else. And then when I went, oh, maybe I'll give this pro. When I figured out, like I said earlier, how easy it was to just go at a gym and just do the classes, just like any other martial arts gym, I was like, well, I'd at least try this. And then, like you, I stepped in for the tryout. Drew saw some potential. He let me know there was potential, and he's like, when are you coming back? And I was like, well, I don't have the funds right now, give me a few weeks. And he, every other day, he's emailing me, are you coming? And he emailed me a few times, and finally I caved, and I got the cash, and I'm like, here. And then I showed up, and it was like within 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I was progressing at a faster pace that I put myself. I put goals, so I said, okay, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna set myself goals. And as I saw myself progressing faster than I expected, then I was like, oh shit, like I can do this. I'm not just doing this so I could have a match or two so my son can see me in the ring. Holy shit, like I see you working every weekend, and you've been doing this for over 2 years now, just about 2 years.
All the training since years,
And you're what, a year and change? Not even, sorry.
Hasn't
my been first a year since your first match.
It's been like 6 months, 6-7 months.
See, it just hit me. So you had your first match in October. Few weeks go by. You start getting phone calls.
Well, it's not phone calls anymore, right?
Emails, texts, whatever the
like
case
Facebook
may
messages.
Book.
And I've had to say no to certain bookings because I've already been booked somewhere else. And it's been pretty nonstop, and it's been awesome. And like, even I'll put a shout out to FCL for this Saturday. I was at FCL in Shawinigan, and like you said, like we were talking about, like, is it a bigger pop when my family's there, or is it different? And I got such a huge pop out at FCL, and I had no family or friends there. And it was like, that feeling is like, all right, like I can do this. Like, it's... Was that,
for the most part, your FCL, that means, is doing a good job promoting you? You were on their poster, I believe?
I was.
And on the Facebook and everything. And for the most part, in the local scene at least, because let's face it, the comparison to men versus women, there's a lot less, number one, there's less women wrestlers, and there's less, the talent pool thus shrinks because of the amount of people you can choose from. I think, like I said, I think people do know who Jessika Black is, and number one, you're associated with Torture Chamber, which
helps a lot, by the way. Like,
I've been told by someone that it does help.
It holds weight. When you go into a locker room, they know you're from Torture Chamber. They'll expect more of you. They will. Of course. But that's a good thing. And yeah, you're going to be treated with respect.
That's awesome. And that's one thing, or a thing that I got from Torture Chamber, is that the number one, the way we train, the way we like the way Drew does things, the way we clean up after. Everybody chips in, everybody steps in, unless you have to leave because your other obligations. It's everybody stays, everybody chips in. It's clean, it's proper, it's very professional, and there's that locker room feel after or before, which is has to be part of it. There has to be camaraderie to a certain extent. pro wrestling is fun.
It builds the family, though.
It does.
It does.
And it's a huge family. And I've always, I always thought it was a big part of when I did martial arts. When I went to certain gyms, if I didn't feel like I was part of that team or that family, it was always hard. And the last gym I was at in Laval, Sherbertoff MMA, the moment I stepped into their gym, it was instant chemistry with the coaches, with the brothers, and I loved it. And it motivated me to do better. Better. Same thing with Drew and the torture chamber. I mean, like I didn't know what to expect. And the people that are there, they're students like you and everybody else. I wasn't sure what the mentality was, but
it's instant.
So friendly. Yeah. So friendly. And it makes sense because after a while you travel together all the time and it's part of it. So you've been booked basically solid since last October. You've worked shows to the point where you've had to say no to shows.
Unfortunately.
How much in advance are you booked right now?
Because most of the federations are going on break for the summer. My last official booked show for this year, for this season, is this Saturday at NCW at Fête Nationale.
Yeah.
So after that, there's going to be a few spot shows during the summer. I'm pretty open. Those of you out there.
Wink, wink.
Wink, wink, yeah. But I'm booked, I know, at an SPW September 5th. So it's going to start again, I know, after that. But a lot of federations go on break for the...
Okay, so there is a break period during the summer where there's less local shows.
Official season ends.
All right. So you've been doing this now pretty rock solid for almost a year. Mm-hmm. And you've traveled all across Quebec.
I've seen places of Quebec I never thought I'd see. Which
is in one sense amazing. Mm-hmm. You get to see places and wrestle in places that you never thought you'd drive through or go to, for that matter. The traveling, for the most part, I could think sucks if it's long rides, or unless
it does. Good company helps.
Yeah, you're never by yourself, or rarely by yourself.
I've done a double booking once by myself. I did. I'll get a little. I'm gonna brag a little bit here.
Yeah, I think you did Quebec, then drove to Montreal.
Yeah, I did. I did Quebec I did NSPW in the afternoon at 1:30. So I left Montreal at 8:00. Got there, did the 3-hour drive, wrestled, left, did the 3-hour drive back, and had my first NCW show that night.
Okay.
So that was, I think, January 10th. I even remember the date. I think.
What was your first NCW show?
I think it was that time. It was January 10th. I don't remember what the card was.
Was it Power Play?
Could have been,
because it might have been my first show.
I was against Ev.
Oh, I don't remember. I remember the first show I went to. It might have been not Power Play. It might have been the one before. But you were on the card. I remember. I thought you might have wrestled Stacy, but I might be wrong.
No, I never did one-on-one with Stacy at NCW.
Oh, okay. So I'm definitely wrong.
I don't think so. Yeah, no, I've never done one-on-one with Stacy at NCW. Anyways. Everywhere else, yes.
So. You've wrestled all over Quebec. You've wrestled also outside Quebec?
Not yet.
You
we have plans.
That's awesome.
We have plans.
That's what I like about Drew and the Torture Chamber also, is that he pushes you. Mm-hmm. Once he sees the potential, he takes you under his wing, and you're done. Doesn't matter if you don't want it anymore. He's going to take you all the way. Yeah. It's like, you can change your mind all you want. Oh, yeah. Like, he sees something in you, and that's what I enjoy. That's what I like. I like when I succeed, but I also like when the family or the team that I'm part of succeeds. And that to me is very important, because as much as I've been in good gyms when I was in MMA, I've been in all good gyms. I won't knock any of the gyms, but sometimes there's this sense of competition within teammates, within guys, that is not very healthy, especially when it comes down to sparring, when it comes down to training. Mm-hmm. When someone thinks that they're owed, or they think that they want to succeed more than you. And listen, competition is part of the game. Yeah. But you have to do it in exactly. And if there's one thing in the Torture Chamber, is that, which I enjoy, is that when I see you guys are booked, I can't attend. I can't attend anything outside, for the most part, outside of town. But I will attend NCW shows once in a while, and when I have time, and bring my kids and stuff. But I always ask, how was your show this week?
You do.
How did it went?
You really
because I know how it feels for people, and like to know that the team cares, and I want to see my peers and the people I'm part of, I train with, and I obviously will travel with. I want them to see them succeed, because I think it shows how good the school, the family is. It reflects on me later on when
that's true.
Vice versa, you know. So
it's awesome though.
Like you said earlier, the family atmosphere at Torture Chamber is beyond what I expected. Although I did expect some certain things, it's like, oh man, this is pretty good. This is pretty awesome. And I love seeing people succeed. I've never been one like, I wish this guy just.
We'll see. That's what I like about it too. Because there is some rivalry, right? Like, you know, I'd love to say that I could be the best girl and, you know, female pro wrestler in Quebec. I'd love to be able to say that, and I'd love to work to that. But I know that, you know, Stacy's always going to be right next to me wanting the exact same thing. But we've seen how much or how hard we've worked, and we see like all the drills and all the bumps and all that stuff. We've all done it. We know how hard it is. So we want, you know, it's great to see people put in that work and then do well. So it's always like great. You'd be like, you know, after I had my first match at Straight Outta Chamber, when we got out, the backstage like greeted us with open arms. Like, it was like, oh, congratulations, your first match. It was amazing. And then when I remember Devlin Creed had his first match with us, and so it was just, and it was the same feeling. I was just like, wow, I actually feel like, I mean, I didn't feel like I helped him in the sense, you know, I was just a fellow trainee, but it was just there was that emotion of like, I am so happy for you that you got to experience, and your hard work did pay off. And even you with Challenge Mania, when you were on Challenge Mania, it was just great to see you there and be like, that's amazing that like you got to take your first professional bump in front of a crowd. And
I wasn't even I think I was about 1 month into training,
which is
and
amazing.
Drew asked me, I almost shat my pants. I'm like, you're kidding, right? He's like, no, actually me and Eddie came in one afternoon to help Drew with his match, and Eddie just spurted out that idea, and Drew caught on. He's like, yeah, let's do this. And I was like, it's gonna fall apart. And Saturday's like, you'll be there at 4. I'm like, holy fuck, yeah. I was
the Torture Chamber J&J security though.
Yeah, my girlfriend was like, so let me get this straight, you're like J&J security? And I'm like, no, I'm not. She's like, yeah, you are.
Just a little bit bigger.
Yeah. I'm like, oh fuck. I'm like, fuck you. I'm like, no, I'm not. She's like, yeah, you pretty much are. She laughed at me, and she had a good laugh.
That was good. But you guys did so well, you know? And I mean, as much as like, oh, it was a simple spot. No, it was an integral part of the show to tell that story, and you guys did well. And I remember being on the side and just smiling. I'm like, yay, man, like, this is awesome. Like,
that feeling of seeing your teammates, your family. I always call family is family to me.
Yeah.
I'm very, since I've had kids, my son is 6 now, and I have tattoos on my arm for my family and for everybody in my family. That it's very important to me. It didn't used to be. I grew up in a family that wasn't that close, so it was like I was an only child, no brothers, no sisters. So when I got integrated into a Portuguese family with my girlfriend, which is European, big family, hugs and kisses all the time, especially when you're meeting people. Then I had kids. Then I realized that family was the most important thing in my life. Everything else doesn't really matter. But I also expect that also when I attach myself to something outside. Being in martial arts, I attach myself to a family. For me, your family. For me, my friend, I might only have 4 or 5 good ones. They're my family. I call them my family because you're not blood, but I'll do the same thing for these guys that I'll do for my kids. There's, and when like it's that feeling of like, oh my God, like seeing you guys in the ring and going, number one, I go, man, I can't wait to be there.
It's a drive too. It's a motivation.
Yes. 2, when I see you guys doing well compared to other people, I'm not comparing, but I'm going, man, that was an awesome match. Man, Jessika did good. Man, Drew, look at his match. I mean, Drew is always a constant professional. He goes into ring, you know what to expect from him. But when you don't know what to expect from people, because I've watched you wrestle your whole career, so I don't really know what to expect. So when I go there as a fan and I go, she knows what she's doing. She looks good in the ring. She made me a believer. She made my son a believer. that to me was like, number one, you're like, I know I'm in the right family. I know I'm part of the right team, and I know I'm heading in the right direction. So like I said, when I see you guys doing great, when I see you guys succeeding and progressing, I'm like, fuck. I'm so happy. And like you said, when you saw me in the ring, it was the same type of feeling. This new family member, he goes in, takes his first bump, and it was all happy, like yay. And I think it's extremely important when you're part of something like pro wrestling. It's as much as it might be an individual sport, like fighting. When I was part of it, the getting to the solo part is you got to have a team behind you that's willing to help you get there, coaches and training partners, which is what we have. And we don't have 50, 60 people, but you don't need that. I mean, I think it's not like you step into MMA gyms nowadays, it's packed to the gills. There's classes with 50 people and this and that, and it's fun. It's nice to see the sport is progressing. It's great for the sport, blah blah blah.
Becomes less personal too, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, the training gets less personal. It's like you're just after a while, you just sometimes feel like a number, unless you're really integrated, like I was with the team and being part of, sometimes even teaching for me at the school. There's that separation. But when you go into pro wrestling, that's totally different. Pro wrestling is all about, number one, learning and just redoing everything, and we train again the same thing, and then just
repetition. And
just doing it right. So the training partners are important, because for the most part, you're not doing it with the teacher, you're doing it with your training partner. So if you're doing it with a shitty training partner, that's shitty for you, and
you're not getting the best that you can get.
It's unfortunate. Because you're trying to do a move, and then that person doesn't really know how to take the move or sell it, and you're like, fuck, this sucks.
And that happens a lot of times in the ring too, like in matches.
I've been told.
Yeah. You need to know who you're training with. You need to know who you're wrestling also.
And when you face someone that's professional, they're on time, it makes your life easier.
Oh yes.
From what I've heard, the
stress is so much less, because you know that you'll have the time to relax and to build your story properly, and take that time to make it make sense, instead of rushing everything and then not knowing if you want to practice a move. Like, there's certain moves that I'm not willing to take from people outside of chamber. Like, I would not take, I won't get into it, but there's certain moves that I don't know if I would trust a lot of people to like
do on you.
To do on me. And I mean, right away off the bat, I was like, okay, most torture chamber people I probably trust, but just because I know them also, and I know their work ethic. And this is not an insult to other people. It's just because I don't know you and I don't know your work ethic. So it's my life, and it's
your career as well.
My career, and it's so having that opportunity to practice things, to make sure going through things and make sure that the details make sense and that you're comfortable with everything, it helps, and in the end helps for a better match, I believe. In
of course,
because you'll have that, you meet someone 5 minutes before you're supposed to go on, then you haven't built a very good chemistry with the person. You've built a 5-minute chemistry.
And you're in your head, you have certain expectation, but that person probably has totally different expectations.
That's quite possible. Then
you get in the ring, and they just
right.
you're trying to put a circle in a square hole, and it sometimes just doesn't work together. Mentally, when you get to the shows now, so it's most likely the same routine, more or less. You travel same day for the most part. Right. Travel same day, because you're not really going too far. So you travel same day, you get to the thing, you hopefully that the person is there at the same time, you get to work on your match and do your thing. Your third, fourth match on the card. The show starts. You're still prepping in the back. All of that stuff. Is there a time, it's 15, 20, 30 minutes before a match, where you go, okay, this is it? Mentally, you cut yourself off, and you go, I have to, physically, I'm done. We've done everything. Now mentally, I have to prepare for this match.
It's funny, because I was thinking of that actually on Saturday, because I like repeating the match in my head, at least often. I don't necessarily have to do it. Well, I need to feel comfortable enough to do it with the other person often, but I like also just going through with it in my head, because that's just how I learn and remember things. But so depending on how much time I've had to do that, the match before mine, which let's say 10 minutes, that's where it's like I need to get in the zone there, getting proper character, get in get that motivation, get that energy levels up, because you're drained, because you were, you did drive, you did have the stress of, okay, who am I wrestling with, how's this gonna go? And so having that 10 minutes before to really like 100% get your energy levels up, get into character, I think it's important for most people.
I told that to Drew when I was part of Challenge Mania 27, and it's one of the things I noticed when I was in the back. Number one, the last match was about to go on, so everybody else that was in the back had done their match already. They either had a big smile on their face, or they looked like they had been to war. They were exhausted.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, number one thing, a little sidestep here, for the most part, if you're wrestling every weekend, you're sore your body gets used to it, let's face it. But back wise, if there's one thing I notice, my back is a mess since I started wrestling.
Stretching is really important.
I stretch. I have this roller I do at home, and it's really helped. I do the tennis ball on my back where it needs to be. Nice. And so one thing is, for the most part, you're never really physically 100%, 90, 95 maybe, but you're sore. You've traveled all day, so it's
you have your work week in your you have everything in your body that you have to somehow
put aside and then focus on a match. When I was at Challenge Mania, I watched all the matches from the crowd. I had my son and a friend with me. And then just before the second to last match, I was told to go in the back. So I go in the back, and like I said, all the matches were finished. Guys were getting undressed. They were just getting ready to enjoy the main event, which was what Drew was part of. And we were going through the matches, and the spots were all done. So I'm there waiting and waiting. So, and I remember Drew was Drew. He was the same Drew I see in class, the same guy. He was telling, okay, you do this, and so when everything was set, he sat to the side, and then I was like, all right, I was just relaxing, and all of a sudden I take a glimpse, and then I saw him. I saw the character. Yeah, it wasn't Drew anymore. I remember telling to that, he was like, really? I'm like, yeah. He said, you were getting ready, you were hopping around, and you were like moving your head, you were just getting loose, and I saw that in your face. It wasn't time to ask you any questions anymore. You were in your mat. It was time to ask.
You learned that a lot quicker than Idris. Yes, Idris, I just put your name that you try to give Drew snacks when it's not time to give him snacks. There you go. Sorry, I just wanted to put that in. So,
a little side note. Yeah. But and I was like, oh, shit's about to get real right now. And I was like, God, I remember when I used to compete either in boxing, MMA, grappling, doesn't matter what it is, how intense it is or how non-intense it is, man, when it's your time to get in that ring and you're going to war with another human being, man, to me, mentally, holy fuck, it's the hardest thing you have to overcome. Wrestling, although is scripted, and I've never used fake. You put your body. It's
predetermined. I don't even like using the word scripted. I just like saying predetermined. It's as in like
it's a work. Yeah, you know what I mean. But it's you're telling a story. It's entertainment. I get it. But when my body, at the end of the day, at the end of practice, when the next day, when it's hard for me, like I said, to wipe my ass, when my back is killing me, when my neck is killing me, when I have bruises, when I feel my body has been through something. To me, that's not fake. To me, it's not predetermined. To me, it's you're putting in a lot of hard work to tell a story for between 6 and 20 minutes, depending on the length of the match, for people to be there and go, and I'm glad I paid $15 to be here, or $20 or $30. Yeah. To me, people that think it's fake, it's because you'd put them in a gym for one day, in a pro wrestling gym, they do it for a week. They'd be like, I'll never say it's fake ever again. I'm sorry. And
after their first bump, they'll realize.
They'll be like, oh shit. And I've heard of stories where guys will take their first bump and then roll out of the gym and leave the gym and never show up again. But when I saw that transition into like from Drew to Drew Onyx to like, oh shit, it's about to go down. I remember that's how I used to feel in competition, and I'm like, man, I miss that adrenaline. Like when you're like, oh, you're next, you're like, oh shit, like you're biting down in your mouth guard, and you're, even though you don't believe in God, you're praying to some sort of God. You're like, oh fuck, what am I doing? And it always went through my mind every time I stepped in the ring and I looked across. I'm like, I always had to try to tell myself, that guy is training to kill you, and I'm trained to kill him. It's basically what it is, and I got to go in there and do my best. Pro wrestling is somewhat the same thing. Like I said, even though it's predetermined, when you step through those ropes, you have to take the bumps, you have to do the things.
And it needs to be believable.
Of course.
It needs to be believable no matter what the end of the match is. At the beginning of the match, I don't know how it's going to end.
Yeah.
I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm still fighting, or you're going to still be fighting to win no matter what.
Yeah.
So it needs to be believable. You need to have the same mentality.
Yeah. And I'm happy that I bring that mentality from MMA into pro wrestling, where it's from the beginning of the match, I don't know what the outcome is. Yeah. I'm just here because I want to win, and I want that money at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I want that winning bonus, or I want whatever that is. I want that purse. I want to win. I want my hand raised. So I don't know what the outcome is, and I'm going to do everything in my power. So if you show that intensity from the beginning of the story to the beginning of the match to the end, then you're doing half the work is done. Then anything else is physical and technical. And when I saw that, I was like, man, that's why I wanted to ask you about the mental aspect, because I believe that mentally, the mental aspect of it has to be a huge part of it.
It is.
Although physically, and you have to remember your cues and, dot your I's and cross your T's, there's a mental preparation to it. Because like you said, you got to go in there and do your work so the story is believable.
It is. And like, even just looking back on some of my matches, I can tell the matches where I was more mentally prepared or more mentally into it, I know my performance was better. For whatever reason, if you're tired, there's no excuse. It's it doesn't matter what you're going through, but you need to be like 100% mentally prepared every match. You need to tell yourself whatever you need to tell yourself. If you need to tell yourself that you're going in there to kill that person, then that's what you're doing, and you need to believe it. You need to believe it. It's not just like, okay, I'm going to go in there and I think I'm going to hurt someone. No, I'm going in there and I'm showing the world that I'm here to kick some ass and that I will win whoever the fuck this person is in front of me. It doesn't matter. I'm ramming through them. And you need to believe in yourself. And it's, Drew says it's, wrestlers say it all the time. It's not like, you got to feel it in your heart so other people can feel it in your heart also.
You have to believe you're a pro wrestler.
That's it.
You have to go, I'm a pro wrestler. I'm not just doing pro wrestling. I am a pro wrestler.
That's exactly it.
How long did it take you to be, I'm a pro wrestler?
Okay.
To believe.
That's funny.
You're a pro wrestler.
It's a funny question for me. Okay. Early on when I started, I realized that that's part of the reason why I loved wrestling. I was like, I'm not just wrestling. Like, I somehow believe in me that I'm a wrestler. Now, I don't know. I'm a girl. I have hormones. Yeah. And, self-esteem issues and, some crap like that. I don't know what. But, so part of me believes it. Part of me still always doubts. I always still have my can I really do this? And, but you have to believe it. So sometimes I really, really believe it. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know, maybe, I have a bad match and I'm like, oh, maybe I should.
So there's two voices inside your head. There's the pro wrestler in you, and then there's the Jessika Neary.
Yeah.
That's your last name, Neary? Jessika Neary inside that goes, oh, well, I'm still only that person that sees it on TV and think I could do it. And then the other voice is like, fuck that. I'm going to crush that person. I'm a professional wrestler. I can do this. There has to be, as much as I want to call this bad or good, it doesn't matter. There has to be some sort of an ego thing, a dedication, a belief, a confidence.
There has to be
a confidence that you are a professional wrestler.
There has to be, because you cannot. If that's the thing, if you don't believe it, you can't fake it. If you don't believe it, no one else is going to believe it.
That's right.
You can't. That's something that you can't fake. You can get away with a lot of things, I think, in life. You can fake. I don't know. You can fake a lot of things in life, but you can't fake that. You can't fake a performance.
And being in the indie scene, sitting in the crowd, if there's one thing I've learned from listening to the crowd at indie shows, especially when you go to a WWE show or Raw, it's different. A lot of people are there to see the show, and for the most part, guys to understand the business side and the entertaining side. But when you go to indie shows, I swear to God, there's people I sat next to, older people. Mm-hmm. They 100% believe that what's going on in the gym and the ring is 100% true. They
want to believe.
Yeah.
A lot of them want to believe.
Oh my God. I was like, is this guy for real?
Yeah, it's awesome.
But, and then I was like, oh my God, they're doing such a good job. Yeah. That means, oh my God. And it, like I said, from the first day I stepped into the gym to the day I go and, okay, I'm going to pay my dues and do this. Yeah. And there's no looking back now. I didn't think I was a professional wrestler. I knew I had a lot of things to learn.
Mm-hmm.
As I'm going in now, as I'm progressing, as I'm trying to build my character, either face or heel, whatever the case may be, it's getting easier and easier to start going, oh, I'm a professional wrestler.
But that's what's great too. It's like I still have a lot of things to learn, like a lot of things to learn.
Course.
But I'm still confident in going in a backstage and thinking that it's like I do belong here, and I feel like that's important for anybody. One, to realize that you can always learn, and there's still, you know, always perfect your craft, but that confidence that I belong here and I belong in this ring, and that I can perform and I can make you believe and I can make you cheer for me or make you boo for me, because this is who I am and this is what I can do. And that's, just going back to everything we've been saying, it's crucial. It's just crucial.
It's a huge part of pro wrestling.
Yeah.
It is to believe you're putting forward a real performance, and that you're that person.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of characters that people do as professional wrestlers that are totally different from the person you really are in life.
Oh, they are.
You see the
I
people.
have my little opinion on that. I'm like,
you think it's something deep down inside, but I think that for the most part, and it brings me to my next question. But before I ask the next question, I think you're right. I think that everybody inside of them wants to be that superhero, wants to be that hero for the most part, and professional wrestling is one of the rare opportunities where you get to play that superhero. And I think it doesn't matter how shy you are, or if you're very professional. When if you're a professional wrestler and you turn that switch on and you're a totally different character, I think deep down inside, probably that person wants to be that, or is definitely there. Yeah. And then you have the other part of it where I've seen guys go, oh, somebody just threw that gimmick on them and said, you're going to be this. And the guy's like, I don't want to be this. I don't want to dress. I don't want to put face paint on. What the hell? But I think that was more back in the day. Now I think people starting to realize that it's getting harder and harder with social media, with the internet, to put a gimmicky show on. People are hard to convince. Yeah. So that's why the characters, the people, the wrestlers you see are mostly closely related to real life personas.
Well, I'm sure there are exceptions all over the place, but like, you're talking about Stone Cold and looking like it's his it's him turned to 15, that's 20. Right. Like, it's just, you're taking something in you and you're gonna pump it up as much as you can, even if it's just one characteristic. Like, you're gonna I'm gonna play this super confident girl. Well, I'm gonna take my confidence, I'm gonna pump it up, and everything else, all the insecurities are gonna be buried where my toes are, and they're not gonna be there, like, because you're taking an aspect of you that has to be in you. And the people who can play those gimmicks, I think it's because they know how to get those aspects of themselves and just pump it up.
It definitely has to be in them somewhere if they're going to make it believable.
I think so.
So, Jessika Black. That's Jessika Black. That's your wrestling name. Okay? Your someone's, call it whatever you want. Your persona. How closely related is she to Jessica Neary, the high school teacher?
Okay. Now that's an interesting question, because Jessica Neary, the high school teacher, is not the same person as Jessica Neary on the street also.
Okay, so in general, Jessica Neary.
I think she's getting more and more close. I think with the comfort and the experience, she's getting more and more comfortable, and they're slowly kind of colliding and merging, let's say. Like, the characteristics are merging together, and I'm finding which characteristics to amplify and all of that. But because at the beginning, again, there's always a little bit of shyness and a little bit of like,
of course,
I don't know, like, is this stupid?
Should I do this? Should I say this? Should I do this thing? So basically, you're telling me that if I only watched you in the ring, and then I stopped and I sat down at a bar with you and had a night of drinking, I would most likely see white girl wasted. Exactly. I would see, okay, they're basically the same person, just like I said, turned up to 25 instead of just way up personality.
I think you definitely see similarities. Definitely. Like, I'm not faking me in the ring.
That's good, because I think that makes it easier for you, the performer, you, the pro wrestler, where you don't have to every night where you show up and have to like transform yourself into somebody totally different. I think if you look at the best professional wrestlers, the Stone Colds, The Rock, and anybody, even nowadays with John Cena and all these wrestlers, top guys, in real life, it's easier to follow them now in real life because of Instagram, because of Twitter, because of the internet. You get to see, and that's why I said earlier, I think it's that's why it makes it harder to be the Undertaker when really you're not a dead man. You're just a person that, you know, 7
really
foot
like
tall.
being buried alive?
Yeah. So it you know, but if there's ever a gimmick that was given to the perfect person, you know, like that was my example. Because back in the day, McMahon would just say, I have a gimmick. You're the guy that looks perfect because you got the frame, you got the look. I'm going to put this gimmick on you. You got to make it work. And I think if there's somebody that ever took a gimmick that's just crazy as fuck, as the Undertaker, as a dead man, and took it and made it what it is today.
He embraced it, though.
25 years, 20 some odd years later, still rocking the place at least once a year, and people are still going crazy about him. There's he took a part of himself and made it part of his character. And I think it's extremely important. And so it's something that I think about too when I'm at home and I'm cutting promos in front of my mirror, when I'm writing down stuff to think about. You know, I have to always go down, deep down, search, who am I and who do I have to, what part of me can I turn up real high to make it go, holy fuck, this guy is intense, this guy is he crazy, what the fuck's wrong with this guy, you know?
And once you figure that out, you're gold.
And I think that's, to me right now, as like I said, being about 2 months into the business, and I call it the business because to me, I'm part of pro wrestling. I'm training to become a professional wrestler. I have ambitions to be a professional wrestler. I have goals to get in the ring and be great at it. I have to say I'm part of the business, so I have to be part of every aspect, and I have to work on every aspect of it. And I always look at that and I go, okay, what can I tweak here? What can I do? And for me, although I'm not shy, for the most part, people know me. They're like, he's easygoing. You get him in, you meet him, you talk to him. I can talk for days. You get me talking, forget about it. You better be ready to listen. And I'm outspoken. I have my crazy ideas, and I don't shy away from saying what I feel, what I like. And I swear a lot. I do these things. And I'm a bit out there. Tattoos everywhere for the most part on my hands, and big ass beard, and that's who I am. It's my persona. Now it's easier for me to just turn that. I'm already at 9, 10. Turn that up to 15. It makes it easier. So for some it's easier, for some it's not. But I must admit, me going in the ring, taking 150, 200, 300 bumps, I'll do that all day. I don't give a fuck about being sore. But it's the physical part for me, and the technical part, I know how to learn shit, and I'll know how to drill it. I don't care in my head. I'll do it.
And we have the best school to do that.
Yes.
So that's not an issue at all.
Not only am I confident in me, but I'm also confident in Drew and the teaching. So I have no problem there. So I know right now what I need to work on, and it's that showmanship part of it. You got to work as a heel, but you also have to work as a face. You got to get both things. Like Drew says, you don't know when I'm going to need a face. I might call you one day and said, you've been working face or heel for your first 6 months of your career, but I need a heel. I need a face this weekend. Can you do it for me? Oh yeah, I can switch it up. I can turn my character, tweak it, and go, get pop here, and that's it. That's all. But ever since I've been in pro wrestling now, it's like if I walk in front of the mirror and I'm home and I have nothing else to do and I'm in that mood, I'll cut a promo. I'll start talking. I'll go, what can I do? What can I say here? How about I take this aspect of my life, but I really believe in, then just fucking skyrocket it up to 25 and go, okay, let's take it from here, and then just scream or shout or be intense.
Perfect,
Or on the other side, okay, so that's more heelish, make it face. I think for me that's the hardest part of it, because it's like either I go too far, too big, too fast. I have to like find that middle part of it.
Yeah, but sometimes, I mean, and that's what's great about practice too, right? You get to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks.
Exactly.
So like we get those opportunities, and like when we do our practice matches or practice spots and whatever, you throw everything, see what fits. You see there's a reaction, right? We're there watching, so you'll get a reaction, and you're like, okay, sometimes that works. I'm like, I didn't get that great of it. I thought this was going to be good, but no one really cared about what I said. So you forget it, and then you keep what sticks. And wrestling is over the top.
Oh yeah,
so
for sure.
I don't think, and if you have no fear of being over the top, then go over the top.
Yeah.
Because that's what, you know, and that's
for one, that's what people want to see.
Yeah,
they want to go, wow, what the fuck? Like, they want to see that over the top, that bigger than life character in the ring. Go, yeah. I want people to look at me and go, I want to be him.
Yeah,
I go home at night and that guy, I want to be like him. He probably gets all the broads and he gets all the women and all the guys want to be him. But not because a lot of wrestling fans, that's what it's an extension of.
Yeah.
They go to those shows either because they know they can't do it or they don't want to do it, but they want to like suspend disbelief for just a few hours and want to be that person. Mm-hmm. And if you're able to like just shove it in their face and you're gold, probably.
You need to stick out. And you need to stick out, right? There's like, we talked a little bit about the talent in Quebec, and there's like, you know, there's awesome guys in Quebec, and there's also the mid-card guys.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be the mid-card guy. You want to be the guy they're gonna be like, I want to be him. I don't want to be the guy that was in the match before that was kind of like saying yeah and kind of believing into him. You want to be the overtop guy. If it's gonna fit for you, then that's what you want to be.
One thing about my character that I find works great with pro wrestling is that, like I said, the day I get into the ring and I perform, mm-hmm. I want that after the shows on social media, to their friends, to everybody, I want to be the person they talk about. I want to be the person they talk about on Twitter. I want to be the person they talk about on Facebook. I want to be the person they talked about the next day at a family barbecue. Oh, man, you should have seen the guy I saw yesterday. I don't know who that. I don't remember. And I want them to remember a name, obviously, but it's like, oh, this guy, I never seen him before. And then all of a sudden it might sound like I'm being a bit douchey or I'm being a bit egotistical.
No, but that's wrestling.
That's wrestling, but that's also wrestling. A part of me in life. I think growing up as an only child, growing up as doing everything to get more attention because I didn't have anybody else. I had to do everything on my own for the most part. It's just something that burns inside of me. Like, I always try to be a little bit more out there, and for the most part, I think it's something out of my character that it easily adaptable to pro wrestling.
That's a drive that's gonna get you far.
Yeah, and I'm very happy about where I'm progressing and and like I said earlier, the team I'm part with.
He really is doing a good job, guys. He's not bullshitting. He's doing an awesome job.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you. I'm not just tooting my own horn.
No, he really
taking it. But like I said, my hat's off to, like I said, thank God that I have Drew as a teacher, because
we're thankful.
Jesus, he's so good at what he does, and
he's dedicated and he's hands-on.
Man,
and dedicated.
Like, he loves Torture Chamber. He loves his students. He loves what he does. He loves teaching. You see it. He goes on to sometimes he talks, and you're like, man, that passion about what he's telling you right now. And what I wanted to bring up just before, because we've been doing about an hour now, so we're going to try to close up here in a bit, is every time I'm in the ring, every time I'm practicing, every time I'm in the gym, every time I get home, I'm like, I have to remember this. Did this work? When I did this, when I said this, if I was doing a shine or was practicing a shine, did I get the reaction of the crowd? Even though we're only 8, 10 and they're all classmates or teammates, you got to get that reaction. Did that work? Did that not work? What did Drew say? What did he say? Did he say anything or didn't he say anything? I try to remember those little things. So if it worked, I'll do it again. If it didn't work, then I'm not going to do it again. And not so I don't repeat I didn't get a pop that first time. Most likely I'm not going to get a pop again. It's not going to work. That is also a part of, like, I love taking notes. I get home, I take notes as much as I can for what I can remember. I'm very hands-on though. So it's like, if I do it, I want to repeat it. I love this move. I want to use it part of my arsenal. I redo it till it gets perfect. It looks believable. Perfect. I'm there.
It's very necessary. I've experienced how necessary it is.
Yes. So it's good in a way that, number one, I like I said, when I started, we're about 4 or 5 that about started around the same time as I did.
Yeah.
So I gravitate around them because I want to see, well, how are they learning? What are they paying attention to? Oh, she's paying attention to this. Maybe I should be paying. I'm not paying. I'm paying attention to that. I also like how you guys and the vets that are there, and I'm like, I'm just gonna rub shoulders with this guy. Like last week, James Stone came in. He's a vet. He's been doing this for a while. He's been in big matches.
Yeah.
And he came in just.
And you got to do your shine with him.
And I did a shine with him.
That's amazing.
When Drew put me in with him, I'm like, fuck yeah. I knew, number one, I knew he was going to carry whatever he needed to carry in the ring. And I love working with guys that know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a diss to anybody that I'm ever training with.
Not
it's
at all,
just like, as I'm that guy.
We've all been there, I think, you know.
I'm sure someone that's been there forever doesn't want to do a spot with me because that maybe doesn't know exactly what he's doing.
You know what? Yes and no, but because like I've had those vets do that for me, and then have that like amazing reaction after, and in my head I'm like, wow, it was just all the vet that just carried me the whole way through. And it's like, if I would have an opportunity to do that for someone when I'm there, I'd love to get, you know, to motivate that person.
That part of it, yes, but sometimes I want to get better. It makes it easier for, especially for a guy like me that wants to push. Sometimes it's like, when I used to be in MMA gyms, I'd always look for who's the best guy I could grapple with right now. Oh, he's going to choke me out 25 times in the next 3 minutes. I don't give a fuck. This is the guy I need to grapple with for the next 6 months so I get better. Yeah. So when I got in the ring with James, I was just like, okay, let's do this. And plus he knew a lot more of the psychology than me. Mm-hmm. So he'd be like, how about you do this? I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Oh, let's do this. And even when we did our shine, there's a few things we did that we hadn't worked on. He started doing, and I'm like, oh, this makes sense. Mm-hmm. I caught on. I followed through, and I was like so happy. It makes it so easy. And then you get that people came up to me and said, oh, you really look good. And I was like, man, I love it. I love getting the recognition, not just for me, but I know that someone, the teachers, the everybody else in class, I'm in the right place. Yep. I'm in the right spot. Like you said earlier, if I was somewhere else, I might not be there. I might not have the same motivation just because it's not the same experience. Mm-hmm. And I've experienced that in certain gyms where it's like, I don't feel like going there 5-6 times a week. But I've been in gyms where like I can't get enough. Mm-hmm. I want to be there 6 times, and if it was open 7, I'd be there 7 times a week. And it's just it is what it is. And you know, every time I have the opportunity to go to Torture Chamber, even if I see that Drew's there in the afternoon and he's inviting people that they're available, I'm there if I can go, and I'm trying to get as much hours on the mat and in the ring because I want to be that guy that is ready. Mm-hmm. I'm not necessarily mean fast, but I want to be there, and I want to experience that being in the ring and having my first match.
And it's quite an experience. I
can imagine.
Quite an experience.
I really can't wait to have that experience, because I think it's just going to accentuate me just wanting to be like, oh, I had my first match on Saturday, and then I show up on Monday, I'm like, let's practice. I want to work on shit now. Like now I'm ready. Like now, thank God you closed the doors, because I'd be here 24/7. and that's what I love about the business. That's what I love about the art of pro wrestling, is that, man, once you get good at it, or you realize you're good at it, it's like you just want to do it all the time.
You just want to get better.
For me, since I've been at Torture Chamber, since I've made the decision to become a pro wrestler, pro wrestling consumes, I will say, more than 85% of my life. At home, watching, I'm doing a podcast, I'm doing pro wrestling, I'm watching if the network's not on, it's very rare. When I'm at home in the afternoon or during the day, I put the network on. I'm watching shit. I'm on YouTube. I'm watching stuff just for the entertaining fact, and now for the learning aspect of it. Before it was just because I was a fan. Now it's because I
you're looking at it with a different eye too.
Exactly. Exactly, and my girlfriend loves it. We watch it together. My son is an addict right now. My son, honestly, I have to tell him to stop. He's like, all he wants to do is wrestle in this room. I'm gonna go wrestle in my room. Do you want to come wrestle with me? I have to, because that's all he would do.
He's gonna start taking it out on his little sister.
Well,
that's what happened to me. That's how I got into. Well, it's not how I got into wrestling, but I got a lot of moves on me as a kid.
I'm not worried about the little one, because she's tough as fuck, and she's probably gonna kick his ass by the time she's 2 or 3 years old.
Good.
So it consumes my life, and I know you're a teacher, so outside of the wrestling, you have a very important job, a job you most likely love, because you know you got kids you're teaching. You've been doing this for how long?
Teaching?
Yeah.
I just finished my seventh year of teaching.
All high school?
All the time? High school the whole time.
And obviously, did you grow up wanting to be a teacher, or is it something that just
it just sort of happened, kind of like at CJEP. I was like, I have to go to university and I don't know into what. And someone suggested it, did it. And first year was rough, but then I really got into it. And
so you love that side of teaching.
Yeah.
You like teaching people. Would you ever see yourself later on in life teaching wrestling?
I would actually love that.
Yeah.
I've I don't know if you know this, but I've had like images of like me opening up the girl side of school.
And I think that's a good thing. I think that I'm the same way. The minute I fell in love with MMA, I saw myself teaching one day.
That's the thing.
And when I had my first opportunity to teach kids or other people, I'm always willing to help a helping hand, even though nobody pays me for it. I'm like,
but
do you want to help with this?
Yeah.
It's
not why we do it. It's not why we do it for the paycheck.
I think it's because it's just when I'm passionate about something, I want other people that kind of like surrender around it. They go, let me show you.
Transmit that passion.
Yeah. And pro wrestling is the same thing. And pro wrestling is something even 100 times more than anything else, because pro wrestling, number one, is so out there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pro wrestling.
Yeah.
You tell people you're doing pro wrestling.
And really, why?
Like wrestling, like
why?
WWE,
why?
or WWF, because people don't know it's WWE.
So like WWE,
yeah.
Why are you doing that?
Yeah,
because I'm crazy.
Yes, but I think it's people don't understand that. Number one, they like what we spoke about earlier. They don't understand the physical aspect of it.
No.
They think it's fake. It's wrestling. Why are you doing this?
They don't the cardio aspect. They have a lot of people that have no idea.
Are you doing this because there's money into it? You're like, no, that's definitely not why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
You wouldn't understand. I don't even try to explain it.
No,
to
you
people.
can't.
I'm like, I'm doing it because right now in my life, this is what I want to do, and this is what I have aspirations to on becoming. So just before we close out, we're gone for about an hour and 20. We're good. So we've been through everything. What's your favorite part of the business?
That's a hard question.
Here we asked only our hard questions. I'm just kidding.
All right. Okay, because I have different answers. My favorite part of the business, in my like standpoint and what I've done, that it's pushed me to be more like physical than I thought I could be, in the sense like my athleticism, I'm not an athletic person, and it's pushed me to do things that I never thought I could do. Like, I suck at back rolls, but I could sort of do them.
Yeah.
And I never thought I would be able to do that. So personally, like on like how it's driven me to get better, that aspect. But as far as like the actual pro wrestling and what my favorite part is being able to tell that entertaining story, and like to have the crowd, like to make them believe, to have them. I don't like saying in the palm of my hand, because it's kind of like, I feel like that's like a manipulation, and it's like it has a negative connotation. But like to really like tell this story, this entertaining story, and have people believe in it.
Plus, to have people follow every single move you're making during that 6, 8, 10 minutes. Yeah, you're like
that's the thing, to have like
that suspension of disbelief. Like, I'm just gonna folloh her for the next till she's done, till the match is over.
Yeah, like she just took this move. Is she gonna be able to like fight back out? Is she like and that aspect? I'm like falling in love with that more and more and more. The more of the shows I'm doing, that's the aspect that I'm really like zoning in on, kind of thing. Like that's. Yeah.
And I think that's a great part of just making yourself a better wrestler, if you can fall in love with that part of it. Because for the most part, like we said, physically it's hard, but when you're in the ring, the physical part is you don't feel it. It's like you
shouldn't be worrying about that anymore.
Yeah, you shouldn't be worrying taking the bumps. Yeah, you should be worrying about telling the story.
Shouldn't be worried about your cardio. Shouldn't be worried about the bumps. Shouldn't be worried. That's not what you should be worried about anymore. So,
and I think the confidence in being well trained is one good thing. One of the many good things about Torture Chamber is that you got confidence in your abilities, the way you train, your cardio, everything else, because you've trained hard during the week. So when it comes Saturday for the show, that aspect of it, don't worry about it. It's the telling the story and loving that aspect of getting those people to react to what you're doing and follow what you're doing.
And then just to add, like having the people like come to you after and be like, wow, like I really thought like you're like, one guy told me, he's like, I'm not picking a fight with you in the street. And I'm like, this guy's twice my size. I'm like, yeah, you shouldn't. Kick your ass. Right. That's right. No, but obviously you say don't, but like and then I had little girls come up to me and one time I was a heel, and this little 5-year-old girl was like, "Oh, you were my favorite." And in my head I'm like, "Oh, I did a bad job." I was like, "I was a heel. I'm not supposed to be her favorite." But then it was like, no, it's just she's seeing a strong woman kick ass.
Yeah.
And that's an amazing role model to be and that's how I teach too. It's to me, teaching in high school isn't necessarily always about the subject matter. It's about how to be a proper human being kind of thing.
Thank you.
And that's so being able to have another opportunity to be a role model for people.
Yeah, as a teacher, if you're doing that, I applaud you, because number one, there's not many people that do that. They teach whatever they need to teach.
You get caught up in the curriculum. I can't always blame them. I've
always been, especially lately, I've matured so much since I've had kids, and I'm a believer in making and developing good human beings, not just smart, intelligent. Obviously, it's important. Just good. We need more good people. We don't have enough of those. Especially we live in a place where there's millions and millions of people. Number one, there's way too many people in Montreal, like any other big city around the world. I choose to live here, so I can't really complain about it. But I'm saying, when you're there's obviously you're gonna get shitty people and good people, and the good people for the most part are rarer, or harder to find. I like, if you're teaching that way, that I applaud you, because we have to not only make smart people, smart kids, and grow up to be smart people, and they have to be good human beings, because if we don't make good human beings, when they grow older, man, the world's just going to get shittier and shittier with more and more problems. And I might not be the best parent, but if there's one thing I try to tell my son is, I try to show him how I love him, how much I love him, how much I love my kids. And I try to tell them to be firm, but sometimes, dude, you got to just love people. You just have to be good to people, help out, do things, because for the most part, you're not going to meet those people. And when you do meet those people, you're like, man, I remember that guy because he was so fucking nice to me. And pro wrestling is the same thing. I remember seeing this because she was so believable in the ring, or she was so good in the ring. So I think it's like a correlation in everything is attached in life, and people just have to find out what is attached to what, and make those distinctions. One last thing. You told me what your favorite part of wrestling. What's the worst part of the business?
All right. I could be a little candid, I guess. Yeah. The drama that goes around.
In the back room?
Yeah, in the back. Which is not necessary most of the time. I understand why it happens, but the childish behavior that I've seen. I haven't seen too much of it, but just a little bit,
dealing with the certain type of personalities sometimes that you wouldn't experience in your surroundings. Because
I mean, again, we're lucky with Chamber. We've been brought up in this family. We look out for each other, and we do, and that's what's and even if there's some people from Chamber that I'm sure you probably haven't met that have been to the school, but you know, I don't want to speak for them, but because you're Chamber, it's you're already part of their family.
Yes.
They will look out for you. And so we're kind of used to that. And then going on the outside and just seeing, I don't think I've been part of anything, but just seeing that sometimes there is little, why aren't you saying being a good person? Why aren't people being good people to each other kind of thing? You just, why are you doing this to each other?
When you see something that makes you cringe, you're like, ugh. It makes you have a feeling of, I don't want to be part of this. Yeah. And it sucks when you kind of have to be, because that's your surrounding for one day out of the week. Yeah. For, say, in professional wrestling, 1 or 2, depending on how much you're wrestling. I can understand that. I don't mind confrontation for the most part. I like being able to have a dialogue and have a conversation with somebody. Like I said before, I love to talk, sometimes just to talk, but I have my emotions on my sleeve. I try not to keep anything inside, so sometimes it's so I don't explode, because if I fucking explode, then get out of my way. So I try to be as honest and as outspoken and out there as possible, so that there's no transparent.
Yeah, so people know what to expect, kind of thing. It's just
Steph is coming with us this weekend. We know we can expect to laugh, to do this, and this, and there's not going to be any bullshit.
That's amazing. That's honesty. That's just what you want.
Yeah. And I've not always been like this, but as I've matured and grown up, and especially in the last few years, especially since I have children, I've realized of how I used to be and how I don't want to be now, and how, because it doesn't help as a growth as a person and as whatever you're doing, as a professional wrestler, as a martial artist, whatever I wanted to be. I couldn't expect to meet my potential of doing that if I was not meeting my potential as being a good human. I think they go one-on-one together. I can respect that as part of being a part of the business. That's not always fun to do. You have to deal with it, but it's not always nice to like either see or be part of that bullshit. You know?
Well, like you said, it hurts sometimes because you're like, that was kind of mean, that wasn't necessary, but whatever, teach their own. And I am a strong believer in teach their own, so you take care of yourself and that's it.
Awesome. Favorite wrestler?
It changes all the time. All right now I'm a mark for Paige.
Yes.
In the female division, I'm a mark for Paige. That's 100%. And all time, I'm going to go with Macho Man.
Macho Man? Yeah. He's number 2. Me, it's Stone Cold. Number 1, Macho Man. Currently, on the current roster,
it's hard.
Especially now that I'm in the business and I see it a different view now. I kind of like certain aspects of certain wrestlers. I like certain aspects of different wrestlers. I couldn't really pick one. I was a big Bray Wyatt fan, but now he doesn't wrestle anymore. Yeah. So it's like, okay, I like your promos, but you got to do more than cut promos. Like, what are you doing? You know, there's so many wrestlers I can name either in the past or now. You know, it's all right. So that's it. So we're about an hour and a half in, and I'm getting hot and I'm getting thirsty. So and I got to go get my kids soon. So I want to thank you for coming in.
Thank you
for being the first official guest on Pro Wrestling Central.
Yay.
And hopefully this podcast will just grow, and I'll keep spewing out these episodes mostly on a weekly basis, maybe sometimes even more than once a week if I have the time. Where can people reach you? You want to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so Jessika Black TC, so TC for Torture Chamber, on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. So Jessika Black TC. Jessika spelled with a K.
That's what I was going to say. So it's Jessika with, you're different.
Oh, yeah.
Jessika with a K, Black TC on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Please go like her Facebook page, follow her on Twitter, follow her on Instagram.
I post plenty of pictures.
That's it. I'm a huge Instagram. I nonstop post a lot of pictures. The moment I discovered Instagram, I was like, oh, I'm gonna love this forever. And so for all you listeners, for everybody that tuned in for this episode, thank you very much. It's Pro Wrestling Central. Check us out on Facebook. Just do a search for Pro Wrestling Central. Yeah, on Twitter, PWC_podcast at Twitter, and same thing on Instagram. And that's it. So thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
And a big shout out to Torture Chamber for being the school that makes us who we are. And hopefully we'll do this again and have you again, and the podcast will grow and we'll get to have you on again. And once again, thank you. And to everybody that tuned in, thanks a lot. And we'll catch you again later. Ciao.
Bye.
We didn't have wrestling much on TV back then, especially where I was from. So what I used to do is every weekend after Friday after school, my mom would bring me to the local video store. And we didn't, at my grandma's house, we didn't have a VCR. So I used to rent the VCR, and the thing, I would rent the VCR with a few movies, and I would never rent movies. I would always rent wrestling tapes. And the first memory I have is obviously for a lot of wrestling fans, it's Steamboat versus Savage, WrestleMania 3. And it's the first wrestling match that I really remember going, holy shit, this is something, this is amazing. And I grew up from then on a massive wrestling star. I used to play at home in my bed and just wrestle with everything I could put my hands on.
Yeah, that's an awesome match. You could rewatch that match a million times and never gets old.
It's on the network. I have the network here at home, and when I first got the network a few months ago, it was for some reason it was around WrestleMania, so they were showing another WrestleMania match. They replayed that match 100 times, and I watched it 100 times. And like you, I grew up as a teenager. Well, I'm not sure about you, but for me, in the Attitude Era, 96, 97, 98, 99, I was a teenager. I was 18, 19, and I love that era. I'm like, you see on the wall, I have a Stone Cold picture there because he's my all-time favorite wrestler. But like you, after the Attitude Era, I went out to college. I started living on my own and living my own life, and I kind of moved away from wrestling. And it was only until I'd say about 3 or 4 years ago where I started investing more and more time into it. We were at home, and on Monday nights there was nothing else to watch. I would tune into Raw for about an hour, and then the next week it would be like for an hour and a half. Oh, look, who's this? Who's champ now? Who's in wrestling? And I met all these new characters. I also noticed that wrestling wasn't what it used to be.
It's not the same
anymore.
At all.
So I had to like reprogram my mind to what to expect. Now, the moment I stepped into Torture Chamber and I started doing the classes, and I met Drew and I met you guys and I met everybody, one thing was clear to me, is this was a pro wrestling gym. It wasn't a sports entertainment gym. I wasn't there to learn. Obviously, we do learn about the entertainment factor of it. We do. But the fact of the matter is, it is a pro wrestling. We learn a lot of technical stuff, chain wrestling, and we do learn a lot about the psychology also about wrestling, which is like most people is a facet that not everybody understands.
Not at all.
When you, like you said earlier, you said I watched and I said I could do that. When and why did you all of a sudden go, you know what, I'm gonna really pursue this?
I think it was sort of a midlife crisis for me. Really? Because I'm not the youngest out of the chamber, let's just say. I don't think I'm the oldest now, because
I might surprise you.
Exactly.
I think I'm the oldest.
Yeah, you just dropped a few hints, so I think you might be the older one than me. But yeah, I think it was just kind of like I was just getting through my life, and I was getting really comfortable with where I was in my life, and I was like, I needed a new challenge. I needed something new, and I'm going to say this, I have my husband 100% to thank for. He pushed me. He's like, yes, you can do this. He helped me get the information for Torture Chamber. I remember being on the phone with him. He was at work and I was at home, and he's like, okay, I'm calling you back in an hour, and you're going to have called Drew. You're going to have me.
You walk into the gym and you're nervous. Yeah. You're nervous. But you've been practicing.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good.
I mentally tried to prepare myself.
It's funny because I'll let you finish, but I've been, like I said, the past 10 years in martial arts gyms, and somewhat in good shape. I've competed many times, and I took a break towards the end of last year. I'd suffered my third concussion within the span of 3 years, and I was contemplating, am I done with this? 34 years old, going on 34 back then, and I was like, if I'm not going to make money off of this, as much as I'm passionate about it, I can keep going and training, but the getting punched and kicked in the head, which I love, unfortunately, it's like this adrenaline rush. And it was like, okay, what do I do? So I took some time off. And so when I decided to go to the Torture Chamber and make that transition, I remember I emailed Drew, and he came back to me with some information, and for like a month and 2 months, I didn't get back to him. I'm like, this is the big dream. This is not a big dream, but it's like, this is pro wrestling, and what am I thinking? I have 2 kids. This is hard. This is probably a lot of dedication, a lot of hard work, a lot of time. Although I did expect my girlfriend to be 100% supportive, like she's been through my amateur career in MMA, many hours in the gym, not at home, and let's face it, with 2 kids, it's not easy. No. I said, I'll put it on the back burner. And then I was on Facebook one day and I saw he was having a tryout. And I said, it was like $50, come try out, see if you have what it takes to be a wrestler. And I'm like, oh, well, at least let me go do the tryout. Yeah, maybe this is the only experience I'll ever have, but I want to see the atmosphere, the feeling. And that was about 3 to 4 weeks before the tryout. So I ran to the gym. I got myself a 1 month subscription. I did nothing but cardio and strength and conditioning for like 3.5 weeks. Yeah. Every day, sometimes twice a day. Because I didn't want to show up there where I'm like 5 minutes in, skipping ropes, and I'm gassed out.
You don't want to be that guy. You never want to be that guy.
That guy looks like he knows what he's doing, but he's like in the corner there, like keeled and keeled over and can't breathe. So I went through the thing, and then I showed up. So you did the same thing, but the day you showed up, you were obviously still nervous. I know I was when I showed up. I was like, I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I was like, is it going to be like I'm going to be there for 3 or 4 hours and it's going to be nothing for me and I'm going to get bored? I'm like, just show me more, because I'm like that. I'm like, oh, this is your beginner stuff. What's your middle to advanced stuff? I just have it in me to like, ugh. And how long was your first experience, the first tryout? Was it?
Because of the thing, we were in the transitions of the places. I did an hour. Basically, it was me and another guy trying out with Drew, and Kevin was there. And it was just an hour basically of rolls, the cardio, and a little bit of chain. And then after the regular practice started, which I watched most of and participated with a little bit of the little chain that I had just learned. So the whole experience altogether was maybe 3 hours and a half.
Okay.
And I remember even just with that, I was so sore. I was so sore. I remember that night I could barely walk, how sore I was.
Did you take bumps the first time you were there?
No, because there was no ring.
I Googled, I finally found, and I was astonished at how easy it was to just join a school. That's what my surprise was, because I thought it was always like you have to know someone to put you in and bring you in, and you come in, train once in a while when I have time. But no, the torture chamber is you go in, you show up, you pay your dues, and you show up for class. And that's the only thing Drew expects from you is you show up to a class. You can show up as much as you want or as much as he invites you. And if you put in the time, he's going to give it back to you. And I was like, right away, I come from, like I said, a martial art background where you go to the class and you do your thing, and it's a discipline and it's a respect thing. And I got the same thing, and I was like, oh my God, I love this. So tell me your first experience when you walked into the torture chamber. Was it at the same location?
It wasn't at the same location. They were in transition. So we were at a JKS in the West Island.
Martial arts.
Yeah, martial arts. So I went in for my tryout with me and another guy. And I remember I was really nervous because I'm not the most fit girl. I mean, like, yeah, I've been to the gym, but I'm not super athletic and whatever. But I had asked, I was like, what's going to be expected of me? So he had told me a couple things, and for 2 weeks straight, I was like just practicing those things, like whatever, like see if I could jump rope enough, like long enough, if I can, like just as many push-ups I can do, etc., etc. So went in, didn't know what to expect, but I was so happy and so like surprised about how welcoming they were, and especially a girl in a guy's world. And like, you never know, like, okay, it's gonna be locker room, but like how bad is the locker room gonna be? How, I mean, I'm like I said, I'm mature enough, I'm old enough, I've experienced a lot of things, so it's not like I was scared. I wasn't scared of being offended. I was just scared of how I was going to fit in for the first couple of times.
Were you expecting like super alpha males? Is that what you were expecting?
I think I was. I think that's what I was. I was expecting like super macho guys, like, like, oh, who's this girl? What's this girl doing here? And it was the complete opposite. Everyone was super nice, super respectful. And what I loved about it is I'm not necessarily the fastest learner, and it wasn't an issue. Like, it was every time I did something, didn't do it right, it was, all right, let's do it. Like, it was the encouragement factor of like, we're going to do it, we're going to get it there. Because like you said, if you put in the time, he puts the time back into you. So if you show that dedication and you show your will, they're there for you. And that was like, Drew's there for you. His other students were there for me. And I was like, I think about it. I'm like, if I would have joined another school, I wonder if it would have been the same. I wonder if I would have been, the same wrestler that I am now, or if, I don't think I would have given up, but it might not have been as pleasant. And I don't think I may have been less motivated too, because it would have been less pleasant to go there.
Totally understand. When you showed up for your first time, was there any other girls there?
No. Well, there were girls training, but at the time, because it was in the transition, there was a little bit of in and out, like for who was going to train. So I only met my first girl, maybe, which was Stacy. I only met Stacy maybe 2 months into my training. She had already been there, but she wasn't like.
So she started before you.
She started before me. Yeah.
Okay. Because when I showed up, I think there's only you, Stacy, and yourself when I started.
Yeah.
You were the only two girls at the torture chamber. Now we have two more girls that have been coming. There's the other Jessica and Eve. And I remember. Okay, so let's go back to. So,
oh yeah! Best there is, the best there was, or the best there ever will be. To be the man, you gotta beat the man. And that's the bottom line. 'Cause Stone Cold said so.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pro Wrestling Central. Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Pro Wrestling Central. I am your host, Steph Paulin, and today in studio we have our first in-studio guest with us for Pro Wrestling Central. Her name is Jessika Black. She is a local pro wrestling star here in Montreal. She is also a high school teacher, which I just found out last week, actually, after knowing her for about 6-7 weeks. I met her at the wrestling school that I attend, Torture Chamber Pro Wrestling Dojo here in Montreal, the mecca in pro wrestling gyms in Quebec. I think you would agree with me, Jessika.
Yes, I would.
Yeah.
100%.
And so when I started this podcast a few weeks ago, and I was talking around, and I said, Jessika, you want to come on the podcast? And she gladly agreed to come on. So welcome to Pro Wrestling Central.
Thank you very much. It's an honor for me to be here.
Perfect. So like I told her, it's nothing professional. You can swear all you want. I don't care. I am a teacher. You are. I'm sorry. I apologize. So I apologize in advance if I let out a few swear words. It is... there's no censorship here in studio.
Let's have some fun.
So I met you, I'd say I've been at Torture Chamber for about 8 weeks now, more or less. It was the beginning of April. It was WrestleMania weekend, I believe. I did my tryouts, and I believe you were there. I met you, and I instantly fell in love with the school, with the chemistry, with Drew. I just want to mention the school is ran by a wrestling superstar. Let's call him a superstar. Drew Onyx, been wrestling all around the world for the past 15 years. And I met Jessika, and she was one of the few ladies from the Torture Chamber. And it was a great experience. And then I started going there, and been there ever since, like I said, for 8 weeks. You've been there for how long at Torture Chamber?
I started in August 2013, so I'm coming up to 2 years very soon.
August 2013.
Yeah.
All right, so about 2 years.
Yeah.
And how did you find out? Were you a pro wrestling fan all your life?
I was a pro wrestling fan all my life. I have to say there was ins and outs. I think like a lot of people, sometimes you follow it more, sometimes you maybe lose a little bit of interest. I think at the end of the Attitude Era, I kind of...
Like around 2000, 2001, that era?
Yes. Well, I'd even say at least until 2003 was when I slowly like lost interest for a couple of years. Then slowly got back into it, was watching TNA for a bit, then back to WWE. And it was just always something that I would always sit there and be like, I could do this. I think I could do this.
Yeah. I was about the same. I became a wrestling fan. My first wrestling memory was when I was 7 and going on 8 years old, and it was I didn't have...
Made your first like appointment for your child, and I was like, okay, and I was all scared. I was like, I have to call this guy, I don't know. And I did it, and yeah, and so happy, so happy I've done it. It's been like such a great thing in my life so far. So
did you find out, how did you find the Torture Chamber? You said your husband, obviously your husband is a huge wrestling fan.
Also, yeah.
From what we kind of have a connection. For people that don't know, my girlfriend works at the same area, at the same company that Jessica's husband works at, and through my girlfriend, I know she told me he was a huge wrestling fan. It was surprising to me when I started looking into. I was curious. One day I went on Google and I Googled Pro Wrestling School Montreal. And
did you find anything?
Torture Chamber came up.
It did, because it didn't when I looked up.
But he doesn't have a website, so the thing I had a hard time finding it. But then I went on Facebook. Yeah. I always search on Facebook, and all of a sudden I found pro wrestling. Then I'm like, well, what's the local promotions? And I found NCW, which you worked at NCW.
Yep.
And And I said, you know what? I'm going to check out one of their shows. Okay. So first thing I did is I said, I want to get back into the indie scene. Because back in the day when I was like 19, 20, I lived in Moncton, New Brunswick. And I got into the indie scene one summer. And it was the greatest thing. It was so different than what I saw on TV. And I used to go to the same gym where all the wrestlers go. And I used to talk to them. And they would always say, you should. Back then I was a bit... I was into lifting weights a lot, so I was bigger, and they were like, you should come and try out and stuff like that. And the indie scene to me was so different because the interaction of the fans, number one, it's smaller fan base. You're going there, sometimes there's 50, 60 people instead of 15,000, 20,000 people. And the interaction was so different. And I was like, oh my God, you're kind of shell-shocked at first. So when I went to NCW, I brought my son. I said, my son was getting into pro wrestling late last year. And I said, I'm going to take him to an indie, so see how he responds. If we get there, right off the bat, I get front row seats. I'm like, oh my God, okay. There's about 100 people in the crowd,
which is not bad.
And it was a good show. Put on a good show. My son loves it. Hand high fives all these wrestlers that go in and out of the ring. And like you, I was at the promotion, and like you, when I watched it as a kid, I always fantasize about one day I want to be a pro wrestler. And then I grew up, and I had all of a sudden, life got in the way. Work, college, work, bills, car payments, shit like that. And then I became very programmed to like, well, this is life. I have to do this and then this and this. It wasn't until I was in my mid 20s where I kind of like crushed all those things and went, fuck this. I have to reboot my life. And I packed my bags and moved halfway across the country. Yeah. With no job, no future.
Good for you.
And chasing my dreams because I knew that's what I had to do. And when I was there at the indie show and I looked at these guys, number one, I said, I come from 10 years of martial arts, and I've been doing martial arts for the past 10 years. I've competed in many different competition, different disciplines. Mm-hmm. And the same thing, first thing came to mind. I saw some guys that were good, and I saw some guys that were okay. And then I'm like, I could do it. With the proper training, I could do this.
Yeah.
So I went back home, and then